Hey guys, welcome back to another Gonk Gang video. Today I'll be bringing you part 2 of the Al and Sam Gonk Gang and Enigma set review for Secrets of Power. We're going to go over the blue aspect combinations in this video. Importantly, check out part 1 if you haven't already, where we go over the leaders, and make sure to stay tuned on the channel for following parts. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Cool, so that's all the leaders done. So obviously things will probably pick up speed a little bit here, so we'll move on to the set in set order. So we've got the Chancellor's shuttle here. It's just a little spaceship with restore 1, and if you have Palpatine when it dies you give an experience token. I've gone ahead and given this 1 star. I think even if this didn't have the Chancellor Palpatine restriction, I don't think it's very good. It just seems like a really weird ship to me. It's understated. I mean, I guess restore's nice, and then giving it an experience. It's all like they've thrown a bunch of things on one card, and it doesn't seem to do anything particularly well.
Yeah, the card's not good.
Yeah,
No
cool.
reason to play this in any deck, even your Palpatine decks.
Yep, cool. Moving on. Next, we've got the Treyas Acolyte. This is a 2-cost 2/4 with no text, and it's just got the Force and Sith tag. I went ahead and gave this 2 stars. I think this is obviously a decent card, and obviously you've joined me on the 2-star rating there, Al. I think it's obviously not a flashy card or anything, but the 2/4 stat line has proven to be good. The Force tag is good, and I think there's a deck that already wants this in Mother Talzin, probably the yellow variant more than anything, but the red variant can obviously also use this, so I don't know if you've got much more else to say on this guy.
Yeah, I mean you've got enough. You don't necessarily have enough good Force units
Yeah.
to always fill up the turn 1 play with Force units. So we need. I'd say we need at least one more. So yeah, this goes in all the Talzin lists. I think.
Yeah.
It goes in probably any kind of Force deck, but I think it just probably goes in most blue villainy decks that want a unit. Now there aren't that many that actually do. You know, a lot of them are control decks, but yeah, Treyas Acolyte, it's just a very solid stat line. You don't need an ability like Karis to actually be a good card.
Yeah,
Force stats.
like although Karis is almost like strictly better than this card, it's not like her ability was ever that amazing anyway. Like sometimes it feels really good, and then I think 90% of the time it doesn't do anything anyway. So he's just going to be a nice play alongside Secretive Sage and Karis in that deck. It's nice to see the Force decks getting some more support, I think, really. So next we've got Zam Wessel. Why don't you take this one, Al?
Yeah, so Inconspicuous Assassin, 2-cost 1/5, and while she's upgraded, she gets Grit. I've seen some people trying to make this work with like that. I've already forgotten the forgettable Lamasu.
Lamasu, yeah.
Kind of thing. You're trying to make her work with that, but honestly, like she doesn't do anything to shore up the weaknesses of upgrade decks. Even if she just had Grit all the time, I don't think she'd be that good. So,
Yeah,
we already have like a 1-cost 1/4 Grit.
Exactly. I was just thinking like you see 1-cost 1/4s are a very accepted stat line, so 1/5 doesn't feel much better for the +1 cost, and then she gains Grit only when she's upgraded. Like you said, this could have just had a Grit naturally and probably been a lot better. So I went ahead and just threw the 1-star rating on this. I don't see this seeing any play.
Yep, same here.
Cool. Next, we've got Newt Gunray Escaping Justice, a 3/4 Grit Separatist official, and on attack he gives another official unit Sentinel for this phase. I just think this unit is like, once again, doing a lot of things, but none of them very well. It's a 3/4, like it should have been a 3/5. That would have been way better. I mean, it has Grit, which is nice, but I don't think it has enough power to really matter or has enough health to survive with the Grit. And then giving another official Sentinel in the blue colours, I just don't know what I'm giving Sentinel to. I guess a Spy, but I just don't see this working out. I just went ahead and threw 1 star in this guy.
Yeah, he's not quite good enough. Maybe if we were back in set 1 days, he might have put some decks, but he's not quite enough. There's just better options. We've got Grievous as just basically a vanilla
4/4,
which is better than this, honestly. I think that's even better. So yeah, I think he's probably in the wrong colour. He's not quite good enough in any way, which is a shame because I have a bit of a soft spot for Nuke Gunray and Rune Hako. But
absolutely. You're a man after my own heart. Like literally 2 of my favourite characters, and I don't even know why. I think it's just because I watched Phantom Menace so much as a child. But like, I love this guy, but he had a trash leader, and now he's got a trash card in the game. Poor guy. Got a 1-star rating from both of us here, so we'll move on quickly. You can take this one.
Kylo Ren's Command Shuttle, Icon of Authority. Boy, I wish this card was better, honestly. It's a legendary, which I think is really weird. Like, I don't see what's legendary about it at all.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that's a problem we've had for 6 sets now.
Yeah,
not a new problem. Each friendly ground unit with Sentinel gets +2 HP. That's not really hugely relevant. A 4-cost 3/5 in space isn't a great stat line. I don't think this will see any play at all.
No, it's like it's not an exciting like stat line. It's not an exciting piece of text. It's not exciting tags. It's like understated for the cost. Why is it legendary? I don't know.
This could be a common, and I wouldn't even bat an eyelid.
I don't think anyone would even care. It needed bigger stats. Cool piece of art, at least. I went ahead and just threw 1 star on this guy. I think you did too, well.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. Next, we've got Slimore, the Witness to Power. This is a 4-cost 2/6, and when played for this phase, each enemy unit that attacks your base gets -2, and it has the plot keyword. So obviously, when you deploy your leader, you can immediately deploy this for free. I think it's an interesting card, don't get me wrong, but a 2/6 stat line is pretty horrible for 4, but it has a relevant ability against aggro. But personally, I just went ahead and threw 1 star on this guy.
Yeah,
What
so
about you, Al?
I think I gave her 2, if I'm not
You did,
mistaken.
you went ahead and threw 2, why don't you take it away?
There you go once again. It turns out I'm not as pessimistic as I thought. Yeah, so basically, this set to me is it's the set of plot and it's the set of spies, right?
Yep.
That's the kind of two main mechanics, if I'm not mistaken. And I think, unlike previous sets, they've actually done both pretty well. I think plot is going to end up being a really, really important mechanic
Yeah,
going
yeah.
forward. I think this set, almost all the plot cards have got some application, and
Agree.
then I think spies are also really important. And I think Slimo falls in that category where she's not a particularly good plot card, but
Yeah, yeah.
at the end of the day, she fits an important role, and I could see her easily fitting into a deck as a one-of where you just
Okay.
resource her, and then when you deploy your Kira or your Kylo or whatever it ends up being in these colours, it just gives you another way to stabilise the board to make sure that if your opponent's gone wide, like a Bail Organa deck or
Yeah,
even
yeah.
a Padme with a bunch of spies, and they've gone wide or a Sabine, then you can actually just stop yourself from getting defeated that turn. You know, if this can
Yeah.
heal for like 8 or something, then that's a pretty good card.
Yeah, I suppose you're kind of thinking of this as like almost like an action cheating card drawing with the plot, and then you play it almost like Snoke. You kind of buy yourself some time, and it gives everything -2. I can definitely see the value there. I just don't know what deck wants this. I guess a slower deck with a later deploy leader, and this is kind of like a backup plot. You don't always go for this, but if it's there and it soaks up, like you said, 4 to 8 damage, it probably feels pretty good. I think the problem I see with it is that you deploy your leader, you have to pay 4 for Sly, and then like you probably don't have enough resources left to actually affect the board going into the next turn. You just kind of buy yourself 1 turn, but that could be enough if you draw into like an OB or a Super Laser Blast. So definitely, I think you could be right on that. So
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not in love with her. I think she's only just above 1 star.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I think she's okay. And I think a part of the problem with her as well is the next card we're about to see as well, which
Okay,
is
we'll move into CAD. Why don't you take it away?
yeah, Cad Bane impressed now. Now, I think I gave Cad Bane 2 stars. A lot of people I know are really high on this guy. I think a lot of people are calling him one of the stronger cards in the set. I
Yeah,
think that he is better than Slymore, certainly, and I think he will definitely see more play. He's particularly good with Kira. We've seen
very
a lot of
good with
cards like
Kira.
that. Yeah, so if you if your opponent's got any unit that's 4 or less HP, then he can just immediately defeat it when you flip,
Yep.
which is fantastic. He's obviously the flips on 5, just perfect for Kira. And that's the thing with these plot cards; they do kind of usually only kind of line up with the exact like cards that they deploy. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
The deck building, they kind of only, obviously for some things like 6 deploy plot cards, you can't even play them really with cards that deploy earlier than that.
Yep.
But with even with ones like Cad Bane, if you had a 6 deploy leader, Cad Bane gets a lot worse because then you basically cost 6 because you can't really make use of that extra resource.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think he just lines up perfectly with Kira.
Yeah, I think he really opened my eyes to that. I think it was actually you that explained it to me. It's like, although plot cards might cost less than your leader deploy, it because you're like dumping it all at once, and like even if you're left with 1 or 2 resources, that's kind of your whole turn anyway. Plus, like even if you had an ability where it's like pay 1, you can't use that alongside it unless you use it first. But normally you want to deploy first thing and plot immediately. So like, Cad Bane basically only works with 5 deploy leaders, but as a card, I think he is pretty good. I went ahead and threw him a 3-star rating. I think he's probably one of the better plot cards in the game. Now, you did say 2-star, Al. You did throw a 3-star rating when you sent it to me, but I don't think you're upset with that. I think
No,
he's a
I
great
think
card.
it's right. I think three's right. I think
Yeah.
he may only end up seeing playing Kira, honestly, but
Yes.
I think in Kira he is actually really strong.
Yeah,
So,
he's like an
I
all-star,
think
right?
Kira is one of the strongest leads in the game, one of the strongest decks in the game. I think probably tier 1, if not at the very worst tier 2. So I think if a card is a staple in that deck, then that's a 3-star card to me. So,
Yeah, agreed. I think he's an all-star in the Kira deck, which is a strong deck already, and he kind of is just like a better devastating gunship. Like, okay, the gunship has the synergy with grit, but I think I'd much rather have a 4/5 on the ground that comes out in the same action, immediately defeats something, and also is like a bigger OB target as well because he's got 4 base attack. So I think he's a really good card.
Yeah, I mean,
And
sometimes your opponent's sat there with like a K2SO, right? And then
yeah,
and then if you flip Kira and you're like, okay, next turn I'm going to devastate and gunship it, and then they just trade the K2SO into Kira and you've lost.
that's the worst nightmare, right? Kira gets traded
Exactly.
immediately, and her deploy effect did essentially nothing. You just deployed a 4/4 leader, and it got traded. So
Yeah. And
this
obviously
is
with Cad Bane, not only can you defeat the K2SO, but he doesn't actually get hit by Kira's ability, right? So you just get a full health 4/5.
full health 4/5. Yep, he seems really, really nice, and interesting that they made him a spotlight card as well for really quite a strong card. They've done this a few times now, like with Chewbacca back in Jump to Lightspeed as well. So yep, I think that's our first 3-star card from both of us there. So obviously other than the leaders and stuff, but very cool card from Cad Bane. Next we've got another legendary here. We've got Darth Sion, the Lord of Pain from Legends. He's a 5/5. And when played, you give an experience token to this unit for each enemy that was defeated, and when defeated, if you had 7 or more power, you can return him to your hand. I went ahead and just threw out the 1-star rating on this guy personally. I think he's a cool card, don't get me wrong, but like he's just a 5/5. He might come in as a 6/6 if you're lucky. But I just don't know what deck wants him. I mean, the only way I can think of him seeing any use is the fact is like Garsax and ECL, because if he gets just 1 experience token or 1 upgrade, he goes to 7 power. And then also he has a when defeated, so Krennic does make him cheaper, so he could come out earlier. That's like, there is some synergy there, don't get me wrong, but ultimately I just don't see this guy working out. He's a pretty underwhelming 5/5 legendary, and even when he does have 7 or more power, he just gets to come back to your hand, and then you've got to play another mediocre card on another turn. So I just not that impressed by this guy.
Yeah, I mean, Gar ETL is exactly the kind of deck you want him in, right? You hit the nail on the head. Like, if he's good in any deck, he's good in Gar, and I think he's not good in that deck.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So
I think there's just too much of the 5 slot, right? Like, you've got Barrage, Craving Power, and you don't want to ECL this guy. You're just saving it for Vader every time. So
exactly.
I just don't see a reason for this guy. And you also throw out the 1-star rating, but I don't think he's a horrible card. But I just think even in his best deck, he probably gets cut. So.
Here's a little shortcut for you. If the card's a legendary, it's probably a 1-star card.
That is sadly so true. Like, if you see that L in the corner, it's an L for a reason. It sucks. Yeah. So we'll move on to the next one. We've got the Dogmatic Shock Squad. This is a 6-cost 4/6 Sentinel with the plot keyword. I mean, realistically, this is just kind of like a draft or sealed card. You get to play a Sentinel, and the same thing, you deploy a 6-cost leader. Just a 1-star card from me here.
Yeah, the only deck you might play this is the Palpatine, because you need enough plot cards, and so you might have to play bad plot cards.
And he feels alright for 3, right? Because obviously he discounts by 3 on the first plot card. It's not a bad thing.
And he helps to stabilize in that deck. But like I said, Kylo stabilizes himself. This guy, Palp doesn't, so he does help with that. But yeah, other than that deck, I don't think he's going to see.
And if you're paying 6 for this guy, you're getting like a worse Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan's already not great. So yeah, okay. I think 1-star from you as well. We'll move on. We've got the Cantwell Arrester Cruiser. This is a 7-cost 6/7 capital ship. When played, you may disclose blue villainy, and if you do, exhaust an enemy unit, and it can't ready while this is in play. I actually really quite like this card. I think I'm a little bit higher on it than most people. I think it's got okay stats for its cost, and you do get to lock out a unit essentially, and it comes at a time that maybe you want to lock out the right thing. I mean, I think it only has 1 use, and that's Piet Blue, which hasn't been successful in the past. But it is a 7-cost capital ship, so you can play it on the 5 resource turn if you've got Piet flipped out, and you can kind of lock out the enemy leader or something like that. You can kind of lock them out of the game and kind of just say no, and you also get a giant ship, which you can then OB off next turn. So I went ahead and gave it 2, because I think in its best situation, it's a pretty good card, like playing it on the 5 resource turn with Piet flipped with blue. But ultimately, if you're playing Piet Blue, you should just be playing the red variant. But I don't think it's an awful card. And you went ahead and gave this 1-star.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I didn't really think about it in Piet Blue. I think in Piet Blue, this card's actually really solid.
Yeah.
But I think you're absolutely right in that the problem is Piet Blue is a terrible deck that's nowhere near being good enough. So I think that makes it a 1-star card. But if this card was in red, then I'd probably give it a 2.
If this was in red, I think it'd be. If this is in red or green, I think this is probably a 2, or like obviously just Piet. It's probably like a 3-star card. I think it's got a really relevant effect with good stats and stuff. Obviously, you get the 2 discount from Piet, but you can only play it in the blue variant, and that's had like no success because you basically have 1 trick of playing Avenger or Annihilator a bit early, so you just might as well play the red Devastators and stuff. So, right, we'll move on from this one. You can take this one away.
Yeah, Condemn. So for 3 resources, you can upgrade a unit or downgrade, really. So you attach it to one of your opponent's units, then while that unit's attacking you, you can disclose Vigilance, Villainy, and then if you do, it gets -6 for the attack and loses abilities. So it's kind of like the Frozen in Carbonite, really.
Yeah, very like it.
Frozen in Carbonite's not been a particularly great card, but I think part of the problem there is that, again, in control cunning villainy decks have not been good. They've always been terrible.
Yep.
So I think maybe if it was in another colour like this is, it might be a bit better, but I do think the card's pretty weak, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that you need to have enough cards in hand to support the disclose, which it's not super difficult, but it is something you have to keep track of. And then if you compare this to something like Perilous Position, that's immediately kind of like potentially defeating units, and there's your opponent may not have the opportunity to like defeat it later on with like a Poe or something.
Yeah,
I think it's a lot worse than that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're a little bit higher on this card. I do like that it can be attached to a leader, unlike Frozen in Carbonite, and it's in a way more relevant color. And also the fact that you can kind of like lock out a unit. It's a bit like that last card in a way. You give it -6 and it loses all its abilities. It doesn't feel bad for 3. I do think that it's probably in like the wrong meta right now. Like everyone's running upgrades, and therefore everyone's running upgrade hate, so it's probably just going to get answered immediately by all the meta decks and stuff like that. But I went ahead and threw 2 stars on this. I think it is decent removal. It can kind of take a unit out of the game, especially when it's a key unit. If you can lock out like a leader that has a non-relevant flip effect, but like they want to get back on their leader side, it could feel nice to kind of trap it almost. But I do think ultimately it might not work out right now, but in the future when some more removal rotates out, this might see more play.
100%. I
Yeah.
think in set 7, this card's going to be a playable card.
Yes.
Absolutely. I just think that right now it's not the time for it.
Yep, cool. Next, we've got another upgrade in blue, the Creditor's Claim. It's +2/+2, and the attached unit gains when defeated. You may defeat a unit with 3 or less remaining HP. I was not excited by this card, so I just threw out the 1 and the 1 rating. You don't get +3/+3, which is the kind of the stat line you want for the 3-cost upgrade. You get a when defeated effect, which I mean you could double up in Thrawn. That's the only place I could see this seeing any play, but I'm not excited to double this up. The opponent might not even have 2 units to defeat with 3 or less health. So it feels irrelevant to double it. So ultimately, I think this probably is just more of a draft chaff card.
Yep, I think you're right there. When defeated abilities that can't easily be doubled with Throne probably won't end up seeing play.
Exactly. I'd rather do a proactive double. Like if I get a unit and then I can make it 2 units, that feels great. But if I have to defeat one thing and then a second thing, that might not ever happen.
Yep, agreed.
Cool. We'll move on quickly. Next, we've got Emergency Powers. This is a pretty cool card. This is a 1-cost blue villainy card of choose a non-leader and pay any number of resources. For each resource paid this way, give an experience token to that chosen unit. So essentially, it costs 1, and then for every 1 you pay above it, you get an experience token. So for 5, you get 4 experience tokens. I think this is a pretty decent card. I mean, like you can basically dump all your resources into one thing if it's safe. Like if the opponent claims and has dealt with another card, you could just go, I pay 6, I pay 7, and put 6 experience on this guy and hit your base a ton, and you've got to deal with this giant threat. And I think it has some direct synergy with the colours it's in, weirdly enough, which is like it doesn't feel like it should, but Gar Saxon likes this card because you get an additional buff on the initial experience token. Plus, you can also give it to all your shielded units, which are safer than normal units. And then obviously there's Axe Woves, which has particular synergy with this, where essentially he's doubling the use of every experience token and getting an additional 1/1 to really pressure out games early. So I went ahead and threw a 3-star rating on this because I think in the one deck that it's good, I think it's really good. I think Gar Saxon wants this, although that deck is already tight on slots, so I might have missed the mark on this one, but I'm excited by it. I think it's an interesting card, and you went and gave us 1 star as well, so...
Wow, there's a big difference. Honestly,
That's a
this
difference
probably
there.
should be a 2. It probably should be 2 because at the end of the day, I completely agree. I think this card is entirely unplayable in every single deck in the game except Gar. And I think in Gar, it's like a middle of the road kind of card in that deck.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like if it's a middle of the road in like a middle of the road deck, is that a 1 or a 2? It's probably a 2, but again, it's like, well, the thing is with emergency powers, like it's amazing if you curve Axe into this and your opponent has no answer, yes, you win the game. But that's a big if. And there are certain decks that don't have answers. We talked earlier already about Sabine as a prime example that will really struggle potentially against this card. But there are a lot of decks that do have answers. And if your opponent
100%.
answers your unit and 2-for-1s you, and then gets rid of 7 resources, you're going to lose that game.
Oh, 100%.
So yeah, it doesn't help into Gar's worst matchups, which is my biggest problem with it. But he did struggle a little bit into Sabine, so I do think, in that case, it does help. It just doesn't help into like control or anything like that.
Yeah.
So,
I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid card in control, so it probably should be 2. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those games where you get to go Axe Woves and curve into emergency powers, even against something like Sabine, I think you can probably outrace them at that point. You know what I mean? Like you're already putting pressure on with your 2/2 shieldeds, which become 3 power, and then Axe is hitting for like 9 or 10. If you do the maths, he's going to end the game so quickly. And I think where this card will shine is like as a 1 or a 2 of in like those decks. Even maybe you could even throw it in something like Mother Talzin as a more aggressive blue villainy deck, and just kind of like if a situation ever arises where you can dump a ton of XP on a unit and just hit base for a ton, it's going to feel great. And then the games that it doesn't feel relevant, you can just resource it. So I think there's a happy medium here. Probably 2 stars from both of us was more realistic.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep. Cool. Moving on. You can take the lead on this one.
Populist Advisor, so one cost 1/4, which is a stat line we've seen a lot, very solid stat line in lots of decks. And then when an enemy unit deals combat damage to your base, it will then gain Sentinel. So particularly effective if your opponent's got like 2 ground units
Yeah.
and they want to attack you into base with both of them, they can't do so. So yeah, pretty reasonable card. I think I gave Populist Advisor 2 stars. I think you would play it in like Mon Mothma because you can bring it in as an official out of
Yeah.
aspect and play it there. You probably play it in Ray,
Yep.
just a 2/5 that has additional benefits is really good. I don't think he goes in like any really strong decks. Is my
No, no,
biggest
no.
problem with him. Like the biggest sort of the most powerful deck probably in this aspect combination is probably hand 2 blue, and I don't think you would play it in hand 2 blue. So
No.
I could be wrong, but maybe you would, but I don't think you would. So in that situation, I think he can't really go above 2.
Yeah, yeah. I think I went ahead and gave him 2 stars, and you did too. I think you've kind of summed it up there. I think he has a place in Ray, and he has a place maybe in the Mon Mothma Swarm deck because you're getting a 1 cost 1/4 body with a somewhat relevant ability. Ray buffing him up is real nice because then the Sentinel becomes even more relevant. When he's got good stats, that's going to hurt a lot more. I do think that obviously the 1 cost 1/4 stat line has proven itself in the past as a good card normally as well. We've seen that have success time and again, and I think ultimately the card is niche, but where it's good, it's pretty damn good. And I think the Sentinel is going to be really relevant against decks that don't want to trade into him, because obviously you can just trade into him and then he never has an effect. I just think right now he is competing with Owen Lars though, as like this 1 cost card with like a somewhat relevant ability, and I think Owen does it slightly better, but maybe in
Mm.
Ray and Mon Mothma exactly, he is slightly better.
Yeah,
Yep.
agreed.
Cool. Next we've got Cassian Andor. You can take the lead on this one, Al. I know you like this one.
Yeah, so I do. Yeah, Cassiano lay low, really cool card. 2 cost 2/2. While he's defending, the attacker gets -2, so he's kind of like a 2/4 in a
Yep.
way if your opponent has to attack into him. And then if an enemy ability, this is a really interesting thing. If an enemy ability would deal damage to him, you prevent 2 of that damage. So most importantly here, he can't be pinged with Cad, with Quinlan, with Padme, or if he is, he doesn't take any damage. So, and obviously Tarkin Town doesn't work on him either. Or, well, it would only deal 1 damage if he was damaged. So, yeah, really, really great card in terms of fighting against Tarkin Town decks. I think that's
Yep.
his main use. My biggest gripe with him is the colour he's in, because again, I'm not the biggest fan of this aspect combination. I've never liked Vigilance Heroism, especially from more aggressive decks, and Cassian kind of fits the bill as a way to kind of, you know, you get to stick a turn 1 play against Tarkin Town, which to me that screams like an aggressive deck. You need an
Yes.
aggressive deck to make use of that. Now, if Padme ends up being the strongest leader in the set and she ends up seeing a lot of play, then Cassian would be the perfect answer to her. So I can definitely see him coming in. But the other problem I've got with him, which is again these problems have arisen actually, even on paper it looks so good, is that like he doesn't synergize with hand 2 blue either. You can't obviously use it's an enemy card ability, so you can't use like hand 2 to play him for 1, not take any damage. So he doesn't synergize with hand 2's ability at all. So again, that's another slight problem with him. Really, is that he's in an awkward aspect with 1 really strong deck that he doesn't go in. So yeah,
Yep.
it's a tough one, but I do think I've given him 3 stars, I believe, because at the end of the day, like I feel like this card there will be a meta where this card is a really, really important key player.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm surely there is some kind of mid-range deck that wants to be able to survive Tarkin Town turn 1.
Yep, I mean, I think you've really just hit all the points on the head there. I've gone ahead and given him just 2 stars. You've gone ahead and given him the 3. Obviously, you're a little bit higher on this card, but I don't think that's because I dislike it. I think it's mainly because he's kind of, like you said, a meta call card. If Tarkin Town is everywhere, Cassian is a perfect answer. But he does lack synergy with like the premier blue hero of deck of hand 2, so that is a hurt against him. But against exactly Cad Bane and Padme, he literally is like the perfect answer. He can't be pinged, he can't be Tarkin Towned because he can't be pinged, obviously, and he's essentially a 2/4. I think he's a really awesome card, to be fair. One of the few legends in the set that's actually kind of exciting. So,
Yeah.
yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll move on from him. I think you summed it up really nicely there. The Chandrillan Sponsor is the next card. Just a nice simple 2 cost 2/3 with Restore 2. I went ahead and just threw out the 1-star rating on this one, and I think you've done the same. I don't think that's because it's a bad card. Like a 2/3 with Restore 2, that is a relevant amount of Restore, but I mean 2/3 has been outclassed at this point with 2/4s, 3/3s, all these different stat lines flying around, so it doesn't have the biggest board impact. I mean, maybe an aggro deck has to kill it, but they'll just kill it and then they'll survive, and then it never did anything. Maybe you could throw it into a Mon Mothma deck because it is an official. It might be okay there, but I think that deck wants to be aggressive and not restoring, so ultimately I don't think this really has a place. The only thing I can think of is, like, I guess in Anakin, it's like a 4/3 because the Restore 2 cancels out the base damage, but the base damage is never that relevant. It's very specific matchups, and sometimes you even want to damage the base to make Anakin's flip bigger. So I just don't think this card has a home, but I don't think it's horrible.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just don't think it's good enough. I think back if we were back in set one, it would see more play. But at the end of the day, we're 6 sets in now. The
yeah,
two drops are so premium at this point that Restore Two just doesn't do enough. We did test this in Mon Mothma, but I don't think she'll even end up going in that
yeah,
because again, there's just more proactive things you can do. So yeah,
yeah.
Restore Two's a lot, but 2-3 like if you're playing against Sabine and your opponent starts with this, I'm not scared at all.
No,
Like, that is such an easy. You just spend one attack defeating it, and then you are so much more scared of a 2-4 or a Gungi than you are of this.
100% couldn't agree more. Next, we've got the Populist Champion, another pretty simple card here, a 3-cost 3/5. I mean, there's nothing really special about this card, but 3/5 is a premium stat line, so not to be overlooked. I've gone ahead and just given this guy 1 star just because this color combination already has a 3/5 with Ezra. It doesn't mean this card is bad. I just think Ezra has more relevant traits, more relevant abilities. But this can be played by Mon Mothma as a 3/5, obviously with the out of aspect thing. It's just not terribly exciting, but it's definitely not bad once again. I think you've gone ahead and given this 2.
Yeah, so I think between either being in Mon Mothma, which I don't think you actually have enough 3 drops
Yes.
necessarily to like fill out the deck, so I think it probably does end up going in Mon Mothma. But also, you could just play this in hand 2 blue, and then you have
Yeah.
another Battlefield Marine you can play on turn 1 as well.
Yeah,
So
100%.
I think between those 2 decks, it probably goes in at least one of them. So that's why I've given it 2. But yeah, kind of funny now when you compare this to like Emergency Powers. Emergency Powers is a much more important and relevant card than this. So honestly, like if I could switch those ratings, I would. But yeah,
We'll
Populous
pretend you
Champion,
did, it's fine.
yeah, well, there you go. He's not super exciting, but I think he probably does end up seeing some competitive play.
Yeah, not a bad card at all. 3/5 stat line. Like we've been excited about that in the past. It is the best stat line for a 2-drop, basically. 4/4s have started to creep up now. Don't get me wrong, because of the 2/4 relevance, but 3/5s are always solid. I just think Ezra does things slightly more in the hand 2 deck that wants to run this 3/5 because it can buff like Ogdo and stuff like that, and they're already tight on 3 slots because they're running Grogu as well. So, but not a bad card. Next, we've got another 3-cost Senator. This is Senator Chuchi, a 2/5 with Restore 1, and on attack, she gives another official Restore 2. I mean, like, there's a lot going on here. She's not particularly bad statted. 2/5 Restore 1's all right, and she gives out another official Restore 2. That's a lot of Restore at that point. You know what I mean? Like, that is kind of critical massive restore you could put on a 3-cost unit, which I think is pretty relevant. Obviously, she works very nicely with Mon Mothma or anyone that wants to play a ton of officials early. So I've gone ahead and thrown the 2-star rating on her. I think in the deck that she's good, she's pretty good because you get to restore. But as we said, Mon Mothma is right now skewing more aggressive, so maybe the restore isn't particularly relevant.
Yeah, I think you do still play it Mon Mothma. I've given it 2 as well because at the
Yep.
end of the day, like even though you're aggressive deck, you still, like we talked about earlier, Mon Mothma's one of the weaknesses is losing to aggro, so you do still need a way to not immediately get defeated.
Yeah, you got 24 health, right? If you're playing with the
Yeah.
manufactory, like every point of damage from a Sabine deck or a Kazuda deck is going to add up so quickly that maybe this Restore 3 gets you out of a pickle, lets you get that Unity off, and then you can win from there.
Honestly, this card is really close in power level to the Populist Champion. I think
Yeah, yeah,
1 power is very similar to like Restore 1 and the On Attack. That's how, kind of low I rate Restore. Is that like
yeah, yeah.
both those abilities together kind of equal about 1 power. So I think she's maybe marginally better than Populist Champion, but I think they're a very similar power level, and you
Yeah, yeah.
can play her in hand too. So yeah, I think honestly she might even see less play than Populist Champion, but yeah, she's
Yeah,
pretty
she
good.
she might be more narrow than the champion, but the deck she's better in, she's slightly better. So I think that's the ultimate theme for Senator Chuchi here. Next we've got Galen Ursa, quite an exciting card. He's a 4-cost 3/5, and when played you name a card. While this unit is in play, each non-leader card an opponent owns with that name loses all abilities and cannot gain them, and he comes out with plot as well, so he comes out at the same time as your leader. I think this is a really awesome card. First of all, this is like a high skill cap card. You name the right card at the right time, and you might just win the game. I do think he has some issues. Obviously, he's a 4-cost 3/5. It's a little bit behind the curve, but we've seen him have success in the past with stuff like Kira and Yellow Hero. And obviously, you get to do plot as well, which is nice because you action cheat. You protect your leader while you deploy because you can name the worst thing that would happen to them with Galen. Whether that's like ECL, you can literally name a base with this, or Tarkin Town to protect the unit. You can name stuff like the Vader ambush or Maul or something big. And played at the right time, even without plot, you can really put the stop on like a control deck. You can name Super Laser Blast. I think there's definitely a lot to like about Galen here. Not horribly statted, and plot, as we've said before, is an incredibly powerful mechanic. The fact you get to action cheat and pseudo card draw all adds up to make this a really all-star card in my opinion, and I've gone ahead and given it the 3-star rating, and I believe you
Yeah.
did as well, Al.
Yeah, I did. It's difficult because I haven't actually had much chance to test with him, just because it wasn't implemented on Karabast or Petranaki for a
Yeah,
long
yeah,
time. So testing with him has been difficult. But in theory, the card looks really strong. Like you said, all the reasons you gave there. You can name entrenched, and your opponent's entrenched will then lose the ability, so you can attack with your units again. You can name shield tokens so they don't prevent damage. You can name bases. You can just There's so much potential with this card. I do think part of me, and I think the reason I gave him 3 stars is because I think a lot of people on the team are quite high on him as well.
yeah,
So I thought, okay, maybe they see a bit more, but I do feel as though he might end up being a little bit awkward in that,
yeah,
you know, without seeing your opponent's hand, which obviously he doesn't let you do innately, it's difficult to know exactly what card to name, and then you end up, like you said, it's a very skill intensive card, as you say. But sometimes it's just a kind of potluck. Like, do they have the rivals fall, or do they have the entrenched, or whatever it ends up being. And so it's a little bit tricky to make use of him. I think again he's in a pretty weak color combination in my opinion. I
yeah,
don't know if you necessarily play him in hand two. You probably don't. So it's kind of tricky, but I do think that he's got so much application, so many places he could go in, Kazuda deck or whatever it might be. So I do think that yeah, he's probably. I'm sure he will see some place somewhere. It's just what deck does he actually
yeah.
end up going in?
Where does he find his home? Is I think is the thing, and I do think he's maybe better in the sideboard once you've got an idea of what their deck is doing and you know like what cards they're going for. Like there's some obviously really obvious stuff like you're against Gar ECL, naming ECL or Vader is a safe bet. They're going to be saving that in their hand. Or if you're playing like a later game deck, maybe you're playing like Yoda and you bring out Galen when you flip, you want to name Rivals 4 to keep your big Yoda around. Um, like I said, skill intensive card, has the plot keyword. I think there's a lot to like here. And I think it will see some play somewhere. Maybe it's sideboards. I just don't know what deck it goes in yet, but I'm sure it's going to see some experimentation. It's too relevant to not.
Yeah.
Yep, cool. Next one, you can take it away.
Yeah, Coronet, Stately Vessel, 5 cost 4/6 in space with Restore 1, and every other friendly unit gains Restore 1. This is poor man's home one. I
Yes,
think
definitely.
Coronet is a trash card. I don't think it's worth playing, in my opinion. I think it's in a weak colour, and I don't think, even if it was in a better colour, I just don't think it does enough. Like, just Restore on its own, to me, is not enough to justify playing this card. So, yeah, the game's come on a long way where a 5 cost 4/6 would like be a good enough stat line. I just don't think. In fact, I don't know if that was ever a good stat line, but
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't think it is nowadays. So yeah, one
Yeah, I
star
think
for me.
early days of the game, people would have lost their minds about this card, like set one and two. People would be like, "This is crazy!" Like giving everything restore, but like that's a bit on home one that's like almost irrelevant. Like no one plays it for that. You play it for a big space unit that brings back another unit, and
Yeah,
it doesn't have any immediate impact on the board really, other than giving out that restore. It's not a horrible stat line, not a horrible card, but like it just feels way too slow. And also like you're playing one unit on turn five, like, and then to gain the restore, you need to have gone wide by that point and have like another unit or two out in play to be using the
mm.
restore immediately. So I just threw the 1 star rating on this guy, and I think you did too. Oh, you actually gave
Yeah.
it 2, so
Oh, I don't know if that was it. No, I don't think I did. I think that
you
might
did
be an
not.
error. I'm pretty sure.
That's
No,
fine. I will
I think
correct
I
that.
think I did give it one. Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
correct
Oh,
that. You went ahead and
that's
gave that one.
abysmal. Yeah, I
I
definitely
would
gave that
never.
one.
I would never, guys. He would never give such a trash card 2 stars. My
If
bad
I
on
did
that one.
send you that as a two, then that was definitely an error because I definitely did not give that two.
No, no, it's all good. We'll move on swiftly. Next, we've got Captain Rex into the firefight. He is a 6 cost 7/7. When played, when this unit completes attack, give an enemy unit Sentinel for this phase. This is a pretty good card in my opinion. Like a 7/7 for 6 is good stats. Sentinel is relevant, obviously. When played, he can give it to himself, and you have to give an enemy unit Sentinel, but like maybe that could even be useful sometimes. You can kind of drag out something from behind another Sentinel that's not irrelevant. But ultimately, it's kind of like just an overstatted card. You can even ECL this in. You can cheat it out early with hand 2 and make a 7/5 Sentinel. It kind of has like such relevant stats that it can defeat all the 4/7s in the game. So I'm actually quite high on this card. I think it's going to see play somewhere, especially after rotation as well, when some more of the powerful stuff leaves the game. I think there's just enough stats here to warrant being played, so I went ahead and gave this 3 stars. Al, you went ahead and gave this 2 stars.
I did indeed. Yeah, I think in Hand 2 Blue, really solid
Yeah, yeah,
card. 5 costs 7/5 with Sentinel, and then you can pick off another unit and give it Sentinel, and then you can use
exactly.
that trade in. It does great things in terms of dealing with leaders. 7 powers an important breakpoint to defeat
Yeah,
a beacon
huge.
or whatever it might be. So yeah, really good card. I think specifically in that deck. When you're paying 6 for it, I'm a lot less of a fan.
Yeah.
Cool little synergy I thought of only today was because I've been trying to make Nala say work for a long time, despite the fact that she's a terrible leader,
Oh,
and you can
okay.
actually
She's got a
play
second
him.
clone here now to ECL,
Yeah, so
right?
she's she has she's got another clone to ECL, which is kind of nice, right? You get actually the 7 power to deal with stuff. So
Sweet.
yeah, a nice little buff for a really
Good
bad
call
deck,
there.
but yeah,
Nala
but
say
more
enjoy it, Al.
importantly,
You've heard it here first.
yeah, exactly. But more importantly, yeah, in Hansu Blue, I think it's just a solid card. I don't think it's one of the best cards in the deck or anything, but I think it's solid.
Yeah, really solid card. I also like the relevance of pulling this out of U-Wing as well. Like, that's a chunky Sentinel to drop out of nowhere, and you can even play a little one cost alongside it. So I feel like it's pushed enough where it's going to see play somewhere. Um, it just might take a little bit of time to find a home. And like I said, I think post rotation, this might become one of the better cards in that color combo as it's losing some of its more bigger parts. But ultimately, quite impressed by this card, and we'll move on to the Jade Squadron Patrol. It's just a 6/6 for 6 in space Sentinel. It's not impressive, but it's not awful. I mean, I just think that Space Sentinels are usually more relevant when you play them early in the game. I think at this point in the game, it's a bit late to play a Sentinel. Someone they're just going to play like a kill spell on it. It can be Fell the Dragon, it can be Rival's Fall if they need to get past it, or ultimately they're just going to play a bigger ship like a big Devastator and blow it up and then hit your base anyway. So I think this is just kind of like a more of a draft card, and I went ahead and gave this 1 star.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of 1 stars now between
Yep.
here and the end of Vigilance because we're getting towards the sort of draft, kind of chaff now, where yeah, in draft you might play this card, but in Premier there's no way you're playing this card
Nah,
1 star.
I just don't think it has a place, so we'll move on quickly. Next, we've got Vigil. Now, this is definitely what we call a fat L in the corner. This is an awful card, in my opinion. This is a 7 cost 5/9 capital ship. If damage would be dealt to another friendly unit, prevent 1. If damage would be dealt to this unit, increase it by 1. And then it has plot, so like I don't even know why I want to plot this out. Like, it doesn't do anything. It has like no board impact immediately unless your opponent is only doing lots of 1 damage. It's understated for the 7 cost like stats. Like
Like it's a
5/9 is
Vigil.
doing
Why is
nothing.
this not Sentinel? Like, come on,
Yeah, this
you
literally
give
should
it
yeah, come
Sentinel.
on, they should have Sentinel. That would actually have an irrelevant use as well. Like you can plot out and like kind of block the space arena and then,
Yeah,
have a big unit on the ground arena, but I don't think we need to spend a ton of time. This is a 1 star
no.
trash legend.
Well, it's a legendary after all, so yeah,
Yeah.
of course it's
You got anything
awesome.
else to say on this one? Are you impressed
No,
at
no,
all?
no, not at all. Get me
No.
on to the next card, please.
Moving on. Bo-Katan Kryze. She is a 9 cost, 8/8 in blue heroism. That is a hefty cost. When played, give each enemy unit -3/-3, and when an enemy unit is defeated, you give an experience token to a friendly unit. I mean, I think the most direct comparison to this would probably be Snoke from the villain side. He gives
Yep.
-2 constantly. She gives -3, which is better, a lot better actually, but she only gives it once on the when played. But she does get to grow up like her own team or her own card to make like kind of like a giant unit and pressure the end of the game, kind of turn the tides. I think it's a pretty good card. I mean, Hero hasn't had a finisher like this in a while. It kind of needed something to like stabilize the board as they don't have like super laser blast. But at that point in the game, they might just have big enough units, and if you're spending your whole turn playing at a 9 cost, you're probably gonna end up losing. But at least it has relevance, effect on the board immediately. I went ahead and threw 2 stars on this. It might see some play somewhere. I think probably once again best in hand too. Playing this for 8 is way more impressive than playing it for 9. But maybe it'll see like a 1 of or 2 of play in Yoda as well. I could see that maybe on the top end. He needs some big cards in his deck anyway. So you went ahead and just gave this 1 star though. You weren't too impressed.
No, and I've got to be wary here because I sort of, even though I thought Snoke would be pretty good, I kind of underestimated him a bit. I think Snoke has ended up being better than I thought he would be.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
8 cost 6/6 just seems a bit rubbish, even though he obviously kind of has that pseudo AoE effect. But the thing I didn't really consider with him as much is that, he just gives you a way to like lock out all the multiple small units after
yeah.
you've played him, which obviously Bo-Katan doesn't do. So I'm a bit wary giving her like, a 1 star thing, but I do think that costing 9 compared to 8 is a very big deal. Snoke often
Massive.
comes down to a turn too late, so a turn on top of that, and then again, not having the ability to stabilize fully after that point, even though she probably does end the game pretty quickly after the turn she comes down. I just think is makes her a lot weaker than Snoke. Now, being weaker than Snoke in a different color doesn't necessarily mean she won't see play because
Yep.
as you said, heroism doesn't have access to Snoke, but I do think she's substantially worse. I'd wish they would have just made her a 6/6 for 8, and honestly, I think she would have been a lot better. But yeah, I think at 9 it's just too expensive for me.
Yep. Okay. Fair enough. I completely agree with everything you said there. To be fair, she is just slightly overcosted, but I do think she has relevant effect. And we've seen Snoke do well. She's very Snoke adjacent, maybe just slightly too slow, but we'll see if she finds a home. Maybe as a one or two of in some of those later game hero decks. Next, we've got Diplomatic Immunity. It's a 2/2 upgrade, and the unit gains when this is attacked. Your mage just goes double blue, double hero, and if you do the attack, it gets -2, -0 for the attack. It's kind of like giving something the Chirrut effect from Legends of the Force. You know, if you stick this on a Sentinel, you'll probably be quite happy if you can keep disclosing it and giving them all -2. Plus, it gets the initial +2/+2. But I think the fact that it's a 2-cost upgrade is an awkward time. Like, normally you want a 3-cost upgrade to immediately place on a unit from turn 1. And then ultimately, it just doesn't have a ton of impact. You know, you've got to spend the time playing this onto your Sentinel unit, which has to have survived up until that point. It feels like jumping through a lot of hoops to make a chunky Sentinel, but it doesn't massively impress me, so I just gave this a 1-star rating.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head there. I think it's just too many hoops. I think if they didn't have the disclose, it might be a bit better.
Yeah,
Well, obviously, it would be better, but you know, it might. But the fact that sometimes you won't even have that later in the game, yeah, I think this is a lot closer to academy training than it looks. I think this is
yeah,
pretty
that's
much
actually a fair
close to it.
comparison. Yeah,
Yeah, so I think I don't think it's very good. Academy training is not a good card, neither is this.
cool. Moving on. You can take this one.
Yeah, 1 in a million Gambit for 1 resource. This card can't be played from your hand, so you can only play it with plot. You defeat a unit with power and remaining HP, both equal to the number of ready resources you control. So when you deploy your leader, you're going to plot it for 1, and then whatever, let's say you deployed a 6 deployed leader, you could defeat a 5 cost, a 5 HP 5 power unit. Now, obviously, it's called 1 in a million because it's very difficult to line it up.
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody, I think it was after the Bilbao regional qualified, they were saying, oh, this card's going to be bonkers with Lando. You know, Lando Blue's going to, excuse me, not Lando, Bale, not Lando, Bale Organa Blue. Ignore me saying Lando, they're nothing alike. Bale Organa Blue. This card will be amazing in that because you can keep deploying him, right? But the thing is, that 1 in a million is hard to do every single time, and it's very hard to like line it up correctly. It doesn't really work out, so I think this card's just not very good. It's really interesting, super cool, but I don't think it's playable.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It's a really cool card. I love the thematics of the card. Like if you pull it off, like it feels amazing. Like that will probably like you can kill a massive unit for like one. You know, it can be super impactful, but I just don't think it's ever going to line up. You've got to be so precise with this. All the stars have to align to make this good. So I threw it 1 star, and I think you did too. Yep. So next we've got Exiled from the Force. It's a 1 double blue upgrade. The attached unit loses Force trait and all abilities, but gains Grit. I mean, interesting. It can kind of like lock out a unit that has like you want to take the Force trait away or an ability, but you're also giving it Grit, and like I just don't see what you're doing with this really. It feels super strange to me. Do you want to give it to your own unit? Do you want to give it to an enemy unit? I guess it's versatile in that, but I think ultimately it probably just doesn't really do anything.
I
So
think this card should have cost 0. Honestly, if it's going
yeah,
to
I
be
could
double
have
blue, I
seen
think
that.
it should have cost 0. Like I think the cost is all wrong. Being double vigilance is very strange.
So
It's such a
niche.
weird and weak card.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen so many bad double aspect cards. FFG really don't boost the power level of these cards as much as they seem to in set 1. Ever since set 1, most of the double aspect cards have just been terrible, and I think Exile from the Force is an abysmally bad card.
Yeah, I think the fact that this has the restriction of double blue could have mean it costed 0 as like a reward, but the fact we're still playing 1, I wouldn't want to pay 1 for this in a regular blue deck, so I just ultimately just threw 1 star on this, and I think you did too. Yep. Moving on, we've got the Darny Pilgrim, a 1-cost unit, 1/3. When played and when defeated, heal 1 from your base. I mean, it's not a flashy card. It's not particularly exciting. I mean, it probably has the most use in maybe Thrawn because you can heal twice on the when defeated, and that's essentially 3 health in total. But ultimately, I didn't really see a ton of use for this card. And once again, as I said earlier, I think this really competes with the Owen Lars slot of like a 1-cost when defeated with healing capabilities. So I just threw 1 star on this. But I do believe you gave it 2.
Yeah, it's a generous 2, but I think you probably do play this in the when defeated Throne deck.
Okay.
I think it's good enough to go in that because even though I think you would definitely play Owen Lars. Like having another 1-drop you can play on turn 1 and just being able to heal for like at least 3.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, for not at least 3, but for 3. I think is just a really nice to slow down aggro. Like it's probably like a sideboard card or like
Yeah.
well, maybe not even that. But I think it doesn't see play in any other deck. But I think it might have a chance in Throne. But again, it's a very generous 2. It's probably closer to a 1.
Yeah, I think Thrawn's one of the very few villainy control decks that can actually effectively heal his base between like the Onyx Squadron Brute, Owen Lars, and now the Darny Pilgrim. So it kind of adds to that critical mass of he can actually restore his base out of there, which is normally a thing that villain decks can't do. So it definitely can see it having a use, and a 1 cost 1 and 3 with a relevant ability. Like you're always going to get both sides of this card. Basically, you basically heal 2 every time. So it's essentially a ground Onyx Squadron Brute in a way. So I can see why you go this 2 stars, like you said. I think it's not a bad card at all. Next, we've got the Escape Pod. I think you can talk about this one if you want, Al.
Yeah, 1 cost 0/3 in space. So when you play it, you can have it capture a friendly non-vehicle, non-leader unit. So it just obviously holds onto it, a bit like DJ, where you just kind of keep the card under it and hidden away. Laughably bad card. Obviously, it's terrible. Why on earth would you ever want to capture your own unit? It's not like with DJ where you get the discount on the unit. You just play a terrible 1 cost 0/3 and then you lose your own unit. This probably, I don't know if we ended up doing this, but this probably would be the worst card in the set. Actually,
yeah, someone actually played this in the pre-release against me, and they played it and didn't really understand what it did, and then I was like, you can just take that back, like just put it back in your hand and pretend you didn't draw another card, because like they didn't understand how bad this was. Like it just does nothing. I mean, the thematics of it aren't bad. I guess it saves it from defeat. You can save a unit from a super laser blast or something, I guess.
I would have liked, like, maybe you could take the top card of your deck or like a unit in your hand and put it in. If you change the cost.
Yeah, you could have made it like an Arubian egg from Hearthstone or something.
Yeah, exactly, right. But like instead it being just like defeat your own unit. Like,
it just seems pointless. Funny card though, but oh my god, awful. I went ahead and just threw 1 star. We don't even need to worry about that. Next we've got Lobot. You can lead this one, Al.
Yeah, it's Cloud City Coordinator, 2 cost 0/4 Sentinel with Grit. So obviously a pretty reasonable combination of keywords.
Yeah.
The Sentinel there to make sure your opponent attacks into it, and then the Grit as well. Decent HP.
Yep.
But importantly, doesn't have enough HP to survive a ping Tarkin Town, so he's not going to be useful there.
Yep.
And honestly, like there are so many ways to just clear this up with 1 attack. I don't think it's going to see any play. We've got this problem again of 0 power that we had. I know he obviously can go higher with the Grit, but the same problem that who was it? What's the leader called? Satine Kreese had.
Yes.
I've butchered her name. Satine Kreese.
We're going to go with yes.
I'm not a lore guy, but yeah. Lobot I think is a 1-star card.
Yep, cool. I went ahead and actually gave him 2. I like him a little bit more than you do. I once sent a generous 2. I think he has a nice combination of keywords and stats. I really wish he had 5 health. I think if he had 5 health, we're looking at a good card here. But the fact he does die to ping Tarkin Town is really bad. I do think he lines up quite nicely into the 2/4s and 3/3s of the world, because they can't immediately defeat him, and then he gets to slap back for a decent amount, or can even trade into another unit. So I don't think he's horrible.
He still loses the trade though, right? Like a 2/4 hits him twice, and he still only takes 2 damage back.
True.
So he doesn't even win the trade there.
He doesn't win the trade, but he does block it for 2 turns, which isn't nothing, but then again, I guess you could just play Pike, whatever his name is, the Pike 2/3, like that does the same job here. But if he gets hit by like a 3/3, he absorbs the hit and then can kill like another 3 health thing or do 3 to base. I don't think he's irrelevant. I do like the card. I think he has maybe a place in some decks, but I feel like unfortunately those decks are probably just not strong enough.
He's going to get the award for the most Star Trek looking card in the set.
Yeah, we can give it a Star Trek award. I think he looks awesome, man. The bald with the robot thing behind his head, that's just badass. I might try that look when I lose all my hair, to be honest. Next we've got the Lost Jedi. A 2-cost 1/3 with Grit Force Jedi. I mean, I just gave this 1 star. I wasn't very excited by this card.
We've got better Force cards that we don't need to play this trash. So
yep. Moving on. The Senate Warden, a 2/2. When defeated, you may disclose a blue. If you do give experience token to a unit, I mean, understated, it has to have another target for the when defeated. So, like, if you play this on turn 1, it feels awful. I mean, you can double it up with Thrawn, so you give out 2 experience, but I think Thrawn's just got better options, so I just gave this guy 1 star.
Yeah, it's not good enough. 1 star.
Yep. Defensively, X-Wing, a 3-cost 1/4 Sentinel in space. I mean, Hero has Concord Dawn Defenders, which is infinitely better, and Villainy has the TIE Supremacy, which I think is better again. So this is just a draft chaff card, in my opinion, 1 star.
Yeah, I mean, those cards honestly aren't even that good at the moment anyway. Like, they're probably barely better than 1 star themselves, and this card's so much worse. So yeah, this is a terrible, terrible card.
Cool. Wilro Hood. Now this is like the ultimate glup shitto to put in the middle of a fucking Star Wars set. That's awesome. They put him in as a 2/5, the man carrying the ice cream machine. Well, this unit has exactly 1 upgrade on it. It can't be defeated or returned to hand by enemy card abilities. I just don't care. Just when's that relevant? Like, what are you putting on him that's particularly good? I mean, I guess he gives himself some pseudo protection, but ultimately he just kind of sucks 1 star.
Why wasn't his subtitle "The Man Carrying the Ice Cream
Yeah,
Machine"?
they
That's
could have just put
great.
Wilro Hood like subtitle Glup Shito, man carrying ice cream machine, like anything. It's just awesome that they put him in the
Yeah,
game at least.
yeah. The card's obviously terrible. It's the upgrade can't be defeated. It's just such
Just
a like. Who cares
I
about
just
that?
don't care.
So yeah, really bad.
Oh god. Okay. The Bardot and Ornithopter, a 3/4 for 4. When played, you can disclose blue if you do draw a card. I mean, really uninspired card. I also want to like tiny rant. Like, I don't understand why these cards like say you may disclose. Like, it should just be like you draw a card and if you disclose blue, you get a second card or something like that. Like, that's why make the disclose part of the initial effect to do nothing. Otherwise, you're just playing a terrible card. I feel like disclose could have been slightly more refined there, in my opinion. But yeah, this is a
Mm.
1 star card.
Yeah, this gets my award for the most June-like card of the set. Then I
Okay,
think.
the sci-fi awards are racking up here.
I
Okay, I
know,
agree.
but yeah, it's not a very good card at
Yeah,
all. Of
cool.
course.
Next, Rotunda Senate Guards, a 4/5. While it's undamaged, it gains Sentinel. I mean, not horrible, a 4/5 Sentinel, but there's a better one in the set, and there's better Sentinels at this cost anyway. Clearly, just a draft card, 1 star from me.
Yeah, of course. It's we're into the full, like the quick section here, where it's
Yep.
just all the draft cards that they have to put in for draft to work.
Yeah, yeah.
We need all these bad cards, but obviously they're terrible for Premier.
Cool. Congress of Malice there. This is a horrible card. I don't even want to play this in draft. This is a 5, cost 5/5. The first upgrade I play each turn costs 1 less. That just seems so irrelevant. Like, I don't know what that does. You can play a 7 cost upgrade the turn after you play him. Can you name one?
I don't think there is one.
There
So
you
no,
go. There
I
it is.
can't.
That means it's 1 star right there from Al as well. It absolutely
Yeah.
sucks. Next, we've got Nala Say, the Chief Medical Scientist, a 4/7. On attack, you may disclose double blue if you do heal 4 damage from other units. Healing units has always been pretty damn irrelevant in this game. They put it in every set, and it's basically for draft and sealed where it seems somewhat relevant. I mean, and healing 4 is a good amount, with a not a particularly hard disclose. Not horrible stats, but for constructed, 1 star from me.
Of course, yeah. One
Yep.
star. Never going to see play.
Alderon Envoys, 3/7 restore, 3 for 6. Horrifically slow, understated. Restore just does not seem that relevant here. Just a 1 star from me.
Again, yep.
Cool.
Agreed.
Umbar and Mobile Cannon. I mean, slightly cooler card here. It's a 7/3, and the first time it will be dealt damage each phase, it gets prevented. So I guess you can see it like once per turn, it can blank damage, and it can be ECL, which is interesting for 7. But I mean, I just don't know what this does that's any good. I don't think it's a horrible card. It's interesting, but I don't know if you have any uses for this.
Draft. I think it's pretty good in draft.
Banger in draft. There it is. I'll seal of approval for draft. 1 star.
Definitely not for Premier.
Cool. You can take this one away. Interesting card.
Yeah, Lando Calrissian, Trust Me, 7 cost 6/8, and there's Lobot making an appearance again.
There he is,
So
man.
he's got grit, and when played, you can choose an enemy unit and another friendly non-leader unit, so you can't choose himself. And if you do, you heal 6 damage. So your opponent needs a unit, you need a unit, another
Yep.
one in addition to him. And if you do that, then you heal 6 damage from your base, and the enemy unit captures your friendly unit. So you want him to play him alongside a small unit like a spy.
Give something away that you don't really care about, either a token that disappears or a small unit that you wouldn't mind healing or bringing back later on, like a Sentinel maybe.
Yeah, and what you've got to do with these cards is you've got to basically evaluate every card that you see that could potentially go into a hand 2 deck as not only a 7 cost 6/8, but also like the hand 2 version, which would be a 6 cost 8/6,
Yep,
which is a lot more appealing.
that's very
Way
good.
more appealing.
Yep.
So yeah, I think as a 7 cost, he's not good enough in my opinion. I don't think his ability does enough. I think as a 6 cost 8/6
Yeah.
with that ability, especially in a deck that does tend to play a lot of units. Obviously, hand 2's ability means that he wants to play most of the unit cards. So I do think it's more appealing there, but I don't think he's like crazy. I think a lot of people, again, legendary people probably want them to be quite good. I think people
Yeah.
are maybe overestimating him a bit, to be honest, because I do think having a second unit on board means you're already in a pretty good spot. At 7 resources or at 6 in the case of hand 2. A lot of the time your boards are clear. Like everyone's been trading away units, and there's just no way to make use of this guy.
Yeah.
I think in hand 2, solid card.
Yep, I think you've nailed everything there. I think it only has one place, which is hand 2, because of the grit keyword and it coming out a turn earlier. An 8/6 is quite appealing. That puts a lot of pressure on. Healing 6 is not irrelevant, especially for villain decks, which usually struggle to get the heal as well compared to hero decks. Like, healing 6 isn't bad, but capturing a friendly unit, ultimately you have to pay quite a high cost, especially like you kind of can't play this guy if you have a good unit out, because you have to give it away.
Exactly. Yeah.
So like,
Yeah, that's true. You can
well, it's a
keep
May,
looking.
but I mean, if you wanted to heal
Yeah.
6, you've got to give that
Yeah.
good thing
Yeah.
away. So I think he'll be considered in hand 2, but other than that, I don't see him seeing any play.
Yep. Indeed.
Cool. I gave him 2 stars though because I do think in hand 2 he's decent.
Same. Yeah. I
Yeah.
give him two as well. But yeah, it's again hand two only.
Cool.
Nimble Prowess is next. One cost upgrade for +1/+1. You attach it to only a friendly unit,
Yep.
which I don't know why you'd want to attach this to an enemy unit, but most upgrades you can. For some reason, they put that text on there, and then
That
you
is
may exhaust
strange.
the unit in the attached units arena. So I guess what you can't do is if you don't
Give it
have
to
if your
their
opponent has
space.
two, yeah,
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 or
yeah.
like if your opponent has two units, you can't just like attach it to one and then, or I guess if your opponent had one unit, you can't just attach it onto it and exhaust itself. So you could have
Oh,
used it
there
for
you
like
go. That you figured it out.
yeah.
You did the puzzle.
There you go. Yeah. So it doesn't have that. So I gave this 2 stars. I don't think it's a very good card at all. I think it's absolute trash, to be honest with you. But I think there's a very small chance it might go into Gar. I just wanted to check here because honestly, thinking about this, I thought to myself, why would I give this card 2 stars
Yeah.
and give what's it called, emergency powers a
Mm.
one when emergency powers goes in the same deck?
And it's
It's way
better.
better. No, I did look back and I did give it 2 actually. I did,
Okay.
so I think that was you. That was your error, not mine. Because I thought, why would I have done such a crazy thing? But yeah, so
Al knew
emergency
he
powers
wasn't
it
that
was
bad.
initially.
I decided to
Yeah, yeah,
gaslight him
exactly.
here. Clearly, it was
Yeah,
not a
that's it. Yeah,
mistake,
I
intentional.
think you knew exactly. Yeah, so full gaslighting in progress here. But yeah, Nimble Prowess. It's a much worse card in Emergency Powers. Only goes in that one deck, but you might play it
Yeah,
in
it
Gar.
has a pretty irrelevant effect of exhausting. That's also an effect that Gar didn't really have access to, really. I guess that's the unique part about it. And in Gar, it's +2/+1 as well, which is not irrelevant. So I think in that one deck, it's a niche use. It might not even even make it into that deck, but
Yeah.
if it seems decent, it's not bad at all. Moving on, we've got the Armor of Fortune, a nice simple card, +3 health for 2 upgrade, but it does have plot, which is a big upgrade for things, obviously, as you get to kind of pseudo draw a card and action cheat there. I wasn't too impressed by this card personally. I only gave it 1 star. I think it'd definitely go for 2 though. Don't get me wrong. I think it could edge into the 2 area. I think I prefer the other ones that are coming up later, which is like the +3 attack. That seems a lot better to me. But once again, not irrelevant. And then even playing it in sealed and draft the past weekend, dropping this on an early deploy leader for +3 health kind of makes them. It's like build a better leader kind of thing. They do survive a lot more with +3 health. So I think you ended up giving this 2. So
Yeah, just erring on the side of caution here because plot is such a powerful
yeah,
keyword, and there are so many decks that want these things. I could just imagine this going into some specific deck that really wants their leader to survive. I don't know. I don't know. Kazuda probably won't be very good, but for example, if you could play this in Kazuda and just buff
yeah, yeah.
up your leader immediately to take it out of range of something, that might be worth something. I don't think the card's super good, but it's just worth considering. Also, something else that I think people forget because. It's natural to think that when you play a plot card, because you're playing it when you deploy your leader, you can, you play it onto the leader. And I was talking about, we'll come to an upgrade later on, you can play with plot. And then someone said to me, well, yeah, but they can just rivals for your leader. But I said, well, you don't have to play it onto your leader. You can put the
Exactly.
Armor of Fortune onto another unit. You just play it at the same time. So if you had like another unit that was going to get traded into, you then flip your leader, put the Armor of Fortune onto that unit, and then they don't have a valid trade. That could be pretty good. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's definitely on the weaker side of plot cards. I don't love it, but I just think that surely there's going to some time when you need a leader to survive, and then you can play Armor of Fortune.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I don't disagree with you here at all. I think I was harsh giving it a 1, but it's definitely a low 2, if anything. I think it's one of the worst plot cards, but I think plot is so good that like you have to consider them all as like a decent card. Like I've been very impressed by plot through playing it, through testing, and then in sealed and stuff like that. So I don't think you're wrong to give this 2 stars at all. Disciples Devotion is a 3 cost 1/3 upgrade, and while it's exhausted, it gains Sentinel. This sucks. I'm just going to give this 1 star right now. Low amount of stats for a 3 cost upgrade. It has to be exhausted to gain Sentinel, so you can't even just like reliably have the Sentinel. So I'm not impressed at all.
Yeah, in the interest of time saving, yeah, I mean, it's an embarrassingly bad card, 1
Yep.
star.
Cool. Scour the archives. Select the top 8 cards of your deck for an upgrade and reveal it and draw it. I mean, we kind of had a card like this before, and you got like 2 upgrades with This Is the Way or whatever. This is kind of like that card, like cut in half for 1. It might be better for 1 for curve filling, but ultimately I just don't see the point. I just gave it 1 star.
Yeah, 1 cost to draw 1 card isn't just not good. It's not a
No.
good rate at all. So yeah,
Cool.
not good.
The Eye of Aldani. So here I've given this 2 stars, and I also gave it the overrated award from me as well, which is the first time we've seen that. And you went ahead and gave it 2 stars as well. Now you can see I gave it 2 stars, thinking it is a decent card in the right meta. or given the right situation. But I do think ultimately that sometimes it feels like if you're going to play this and they've got enough units where the pay one is relevant enough, that they're already winning so hard anyway, they'll just pay it and just hit your base for a ton of damage anyway. So they can essentially skip a turn. They're that far ahead anyway. It could knock them off curve. Don't get me wrong, that can hurt decks. But I think a lot of people have been really high on this card, whereas I'm more like I just think it's okay.
I think the card's pretty terrible, honestly. I
Yeah,
really don't like it at all. But I do think that the reason I gave it 2 is because in very, very specific situations, like a Vader, for example, if you're
yeah, yeah.
against Vader that played a bunch of little units, then, but even then, honestly, they could just pay for like their one,
They'll just
close
pay for the
combat
good thing.
squadron. Yeah, and just let the ones, it's basically just like one cost heal for a few points of damage, which
Yeah,
just really isn't that good. So honestly, I think this card's closer to a 1. I think this card's just
yeah,
not
yeah,
good.
yeah.
It's not good at all.
I think, like I said, we both gave it 2. We clearly think this might be something there, but the amount of like buzz I heard about this and some other people were talking about like how good it is at stopping things exactly like Vader or maybe a new Swarm deck, I was like, I just don't see it. If they're that far ahead, they'll just pay for the good thing, or they'll just pay for everything and just kill you anyway because they could skip their turn. They're winning.
Can I also give it like the award for like the most under like what's it like the worst art for what the most sort
For
of
what
least
this scene
the most
is,
potential.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. For
right.
what
Like
this scene
they could
is,
have
that sucks.
they showed the gutter and like the wall, and they could have shown like all the beautiful colors of like the big sky, and instead they showed like one color
100%.
blue, and they showed a wall. I'm like,
Like
okay,
this is like
right.
the best scene in Andor season 1. It looks
Yeah,
amazing and like it's just blue. It looks like a blue explosion. Yeah,
yeah,
so we'll
exactly.
give it the overrated art award. We're creating awards as we go here. We've got to keep it up. Next, relief request: heal 3 damage from a unit. You may disclose blue. If you do, heal 3 damage from another unit. Absolutely terrible. Healing units
Yeah, if it
sucks.
reads heal damage from a unit, you don't need to worry
Yeah,
about it in
just
playing.
just move on with your life. Knowledge and defense. This is a pretty decent card. Give a unit -2/-2 for 3, and you will get to draw a card. So in the past, we've had these effects where it's -2/-2 upgrade and exhaust on perilous positions, or -2/-2 and heal 2 with make an opening back in set 1. I think the -2 has become more and more irrelevant, where like things have become just higher statted, and also stuff like TIE Phantom isn't as relevant to answer anymore as it was. But I
Mhm.
think this is pushed enough where like the fact you get to like replace it and you get the effect, it seems pretty decent. I went ahead and gave it the 2-star rating just for that, as I think that is the best of the -2 effects we've seen. I think you went ahead and gave it 2 as well. I don't know if you've got much else to say.
Yeah, at first I thought I agreed. I thought this was the best of them. Honestly, I think Perilous Position might still be better. Like
Because of the
honestly, like I
exhaust on
think
a big
Perilous.
unit.
Yeah, I think that's just a more useful application than drawing a card. But I do think Knowledge and Defense will absolutely just carry on that baton once rotation happens, and then they
Yes.
rotate out, and you'll be able to continue on with that ability. So it's an important card to have in the game. But yeah, right now I think it's probably overshadowed. And like you said, those cards aren't very good now anyway.
Yeah, those cards haven't been good for a little while now. Like Perilous Position was like everywhere during the set 3 meta, and then it just fell off the face of the earth. Which is even surprising against like pilot leaders, which were like dumping all their eggs into one basket. It still didn't see a ton of play. So I think ultimately it's probably not good enough right now, but maybe after rotation, if we get some more threats that need to be dealt with. And also drawing a card is relevant for a few decks, maybe Dedra or even Yoda, the hero. So maybe it's just about good enough to fit into those decks where drawing a card matters a bit more. So charged with murder is a 4-cost event. You may disclose double blue if you do defeat a damaged non-leader unit. This is a really poor man's removal spell. I'd rather just play Takedown or Fell the Dragon here.
Yeah, awful. No reason to play this. And obviously, in limited, you need some removals. That's
Yeah.
why it's there, but it's not good enough to compete in constructed.
Yeah, the fact it has to also be damaged, like if it's already damaged, I don't know how it's gained that damage. I probably attacked and killed it anyway, so it just feels kind of poo. I guess you just throw a spy into it, and then you get
Mhm.
to charge it with murder. Retaliation, defeat a unit that dealt damage to a base this phase for 5. I mean, not the most horrific thing, but you already have to take the big hit to then remove it, so it's already done its thing this turn, so it feels kind of overcosted. I think this could have comfortably costed like 4. And been a lot better because you kind of have to get hit by the big thing before you then deal with it. So you're spending your time dealing with a threat that's already gone. So I think ultimately this is just a 1-star removal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the advantage of a vanquish is it can hit leaders, but
Yeah.
then the disadvantage being that they have to attack base first, which is terrible. So yeah, the card's absolutely terrible.
Yep. Hyperspace disaster. Why don't you take this one, Al?
Yeah, so really long text box in this one, so it's going to take me a little while to get through it. Defeat all space units. That's it.
Whoa.
So yeah, it's a one-sided super laser blast only in space, and I've given this 3 stars. I think this card's really relevant. It's really important for some decks to have a way to answer these not necessarily the most aggressive like Von Regs or whatever the most aggressive space decks because they don't really care too much about this
Yeah,
as the game's over by 7 anyway. But for decks like Vader, for example, where you deploy your Vader on 6 and then the turn after, or if they ramped on that turn, you can play the Hyperspace Disaster. I think it's really
yeah,
important. So I think it's a really key card for certain decks to have a way to stop Vader winning the game. Vader's been a bit of a weird deck in that like if you have answers in your deck, it's a pretty easy matchup. But then for some decks you just don't have the answer, and then
yeah,
you just can't do anything to beat it.
yeah.
So yeah, really matchup dependent, and Hyperspace Disaster, really important card. I think at least in the sideboard, but probably in the main deck as well.
Yeah, it feels like a real sideboard silver bullet for exactly Vader, Boba Data Vault, Admiral Piet,
Yeah.
they like all these big space decks where like they're trying to put all their eggs into space and not really play a ground unit. Then you just basically get a discounted one cost less Super Laser Blast. Especially if your deck is not planning on playing in space, like someone like a hand 2 blue doesn't play like any space units, they just go all ground, and then they can just blow up all your space units and continue to pressure on the ground. It kind of gives access to
Well, I mean,
heroes.
it's really important as well. It's so much better than Super Laser Blast because again, it doesn't hit your own ground units
Yep,
as you say. So even it costing one less than Super Laser Blast is already amazing. But then the fact that obviously it doesn't help with ground, but for what it does when it helps in space, like you said, it's just not defeating your ground units is just so important. Right? Because it
100%.
just means that if you can defeat all your opponent's space and then you're left something on board, you will just win that game every time.
Agreed. Yep, a real silver bullet card here. Kind of a mean card actually to certain decks. It's kind of like this is 7 cost, fuck you to them. That's like their game plan over, defeat their leader or their space units. But I think it's a card ultimately that will definitely see play somewhere. It has that text is too strong to not see play, especially in the meta we've seen where space is quite relevant. So, hey guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. Make sure that you check out the following parts of the set review in the above cards, and also make sure that you check out our other videos on the channel. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and leave some comments down below of what you'd like to see in the future, or potentially leave down your hot takes on the cards that we discussed in this video. Thanks for watching today, guys. Really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.